In this first clip, Schulz grills Trump about the assassination attempt he survived. Trump dives into the intense details from the chaos to the emotions in the room. It's a shocking story you have to hear to believe.
Okay, so you're going back into this place where, there was this assassination attempt. They hit you. Headshot.
Yeah.
You survive.
Yeah. It was not a good feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you
Looks
scared?
better, by the way.
No, I'm not scared. I have an attitude. It's interesting. It's sort of, it is what it is. Does that make any sense to you guys?
Yeah.
You do what you have to do. I felt it was important to go back. A lot of people, I guess, agreed with me because it was over 100. I think they said 108,000 people in the end. That's a lot of people.
Super Bowl.
And I had no guitar. If you have a guitar, it's easy. When you don't have a
I
guitar,
thought you said Qatar.
Yeah.
I have guitar. I do have that. They like me very much, but I don't have a guitar.
Yeah, you have the
right?
guitar, yes.
So anyway, but that was amazing. It was amazing. I mean, I like it when somebody like Elon, who has a lot to lose, is willing to do what's right.
Yeah.
Some people know it's right to do, and I'm not just talking about endorsements and all, but they don't want to do things because they're...
They don't want it to cost them opportunities
the word
in
is
the future.
they want to be politically correct. And actually they're doing a bad thing, I think, for themselves and for a lot of people they may represent.
Okay, opening line when you walk out there.
So
Right.
I mean,
I was wondering what you were going to say. And as a comedian, you can seize the moment.
Yeah.
And
I hear he's a hell of a comedian, by the way.
I appreciate
That's
that.
what the word is.
So I hear you go, I see the video and you go up there and you go, as I was saying.
Right.
Crowd goes fucking berserk or what?
They went, I would say, crazy.
Yeah.
And I wasn't
Biggest
sure.
pop you've
so-
experienced?
Yeah, I'll tell you how, you have this as a comedian or even not as a comedian, just when you make a speech or you make some very serious statement.
Yeah.
So we're at a very serious and somber thing
Event,
because
yeah.
we're celebrating a life that is no longer with us. And I wasn't sure whether or not that thing, I had it in my mind for a long time. Once I said I'm going back, which I wanted to go back immediately, I wanted to actually finish my speech, okay? When I got up, I said, let me finish my speech. But I'm surrounded by like 8 very large, strong men and a very wonderful woman. You saw that.
Yeah.
But I'm surrounded by guys. They said, sir, no way, go. And I have blood pouring down, but I really wanted to finish my speech. I said, I think I had like 50,000. I had a lot of people there.
Yeah.
And, when I went down, it was sort of like embarrassed. I said, I went down in front of all these people. That was my first thing. I don't want to be embarrassed.
You were embarrassed that you went down after being shot?
Well, you weren't exactly sure what the hell was happening at first,
Yeah.
But also, you came back up with the fist raised. That's one of the hardest pictures.
But I was also,
Did you hear them say he's down, or were you just
so when I got hit, I assume that it's funny.
Is it?
When I was down there, it is sort of strange, I guess. Now it's a little bit, we can smile a little bit, but not really, because the 3 guys, 1 killed,
Of course.
2 very
What a
badly
dick.
hit.
Yeah.
But when I went down, I had total realization. It wasn't a surreal. They talked about a surreal. That could be a surreal experience, like when something happens, some traumatic thing happens. People they lose focus. They have no idea where they are. I've heard many people where that happens. Something really terrible happens that. It was just the opposite. I knew exactly what had happened. I got shot in the ear, and Secret Service thought I may have been shot. Actually, they were pretty sure that I was shot all over because there was a lot of blood. Just a little fact, if you get shot in the ear, it's the bloodiest place. It bleeds more than anything else.
Oh, wow.
Now, it's good to be shot this way, not that way. That way, that's bad. So if I don't turn, I would be doing this right now, guaranteed.
Next up, Trump describes an unbelievable moment. He calls the impossible shot a near-miraculous event during the attack. Schulz reacts with a mix of disbelief and humor as Trump shares what really happened.
My son, Don, told me, actually, he's a great shooter. So is Eric. They're great shooters. They're like better than Scratch, okay, if you use
Yeah.
And they say it's amazing because it was 130 yards. To me, that sounds like far away, but it's not. For shooting, it's not. He said, that would be like sinking a 1-foot putt for just a decent shooter.
Wow.
And I don't know if you guys are shooters, but they said, if you're a shooter, it's almost impossible to miss. It's that close. It's really considered that close. I mean, 300, 400, 500 yards is very doable, but this is supposed to be very close. And so he said, I think Don became more religious, actually, you want to know the truth. It had a big impact. He said, it's impossible. The doctor, actually, when I got to the hospital, they were fantastic, Butler Hospital. I get there, and the doctor greeted me, and he looked at me and looked it over. He said, you are the luckiest man I've ever met.
Wow.
He said, you should immediately go out and buy a lotto ticket. Can you imagine? He's telling me to buy a lotto ticket. Yeah. There's blood all over the place. Yeah. And he said, I've been doing this for 25 years. He said, I've never seen a thing like this.
Wow.
Because it's just whacked it, but it was something that was, relatively not so bad compared to what could have happened. So I feel very lucky. It was an amazing experience, a horrible experience in most ways. In some ways, it was beautiful because I was somehow I hopefully Corey's protected too, who's the firefighter, and he's in a good place, maybe a better place than we're in here, because this world is a little bit on the tough side. But it was an amazing experience.
Now, Trump gets into the strange details about the shooter's phone, including mysterious foreign apps and possible outside interference. This segment raises some serious questions about what really went down.
There was that San Bernardino shooter that they hacked. The FBI was able to hack into the phone. Apple didn't give it up, but they were able to hack in.
There are some people in the world, very few, that have an ability to sometimes be able to hack in.
Got it.
Very rarely, actually.
Yeah.
It's an amazing thing when you think that with all the genius, you almost can't do it. But Apple has a key, and the key is open. I mean, they can do it immediately. Yeah. But they don't do it, and they don't do it, and that's one of the reasons that, I hate to say it, drug lords feel very confident that they'll never be exposed, and they use their cell phones, their Apple phones, and maybe it's that way with other companies, I don't know. They have Samsung, they have other companies, but it's very hard. Apple's very strong on that. But when it comes to the assassination of a president, leading candidate, former president, all that, I think the rules have to go out and they have to open those things and they have to find out. And
in terms of national security,
some people would say you have to either punish Apple or you have to get somebody that can do it. But in terms of national security, so the one guy has 6 phones, lots of messages to people. Who are those people he's calling when he's hiding behind a bush?
In this explosive segment, Trump points the finger at Iran for orchestrating the attack. He makes bold claims that sparked major controversy and debate when this episode first aired.
Look, if you look at assassinations or attempts, first of all, you realize I'm in a very dangerous business.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Because 1/10, think of this, 1/10 of 1% of auto races die.
Yep.
Bull riders, I think that's pretty dangerous, right?
Yeah,
I don't know much about it, but I think I wouldn't want to be on one of those suckers.
No. Yeah.
I see them flying off and the hoof is like an inch from the eye, and when it hits the eye, you're gone,
Game
right?
over. Yeah.
And they are well, it's about the same. 1/10 of 1%.
Yeah.
And other things, it's never much more than that. That's sort of maxed out, I think. Race car drivers, bull riders, I think that's pretty much tough.
Yeah.
UFC fighters, it's none. I don't think anyone's ever actually...
Not in UFC. In MMA or boxing,
maybe.
There was those tragic events.
Amazingly, boxers die a lot. But UFC, Dana tells me it's a safe sport. I say, to me, it's much rougher. But, it's pretty amazing. They've never, in UFC, they've never lost. And they run a great operation. Nobody's died. But with presidents, it's like a substantial percentage.
Way higher than we realize.
When you look at Lincoln and Kennedy and this and that. I mean,
attempts,
you go
Reagan.
through McKinley.
Yep, Garfield.
You look at a lot of people. I'm in a very dangerous
business.
profession.
Yeah.
I call it a profession.
Yes.
A dangerous profession.
I like that.
I'm sitting with you guys. You have a very nice, safe life. Me?
Yeah.
So, no, if you said 5%.
I think he called us soft.
No,
Yeah,
but think
I'm fine
of
with
it. Yeah, but think of it, 5%.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
That's high.
That's a lot. And
I think even the attempts is something like
Attempts?
25%
Yeah.
of
attempts
presidents have had
is getting
attempt.
into really
It's crazy.
numbers. So people don't think of that. You run and you see, and then you win, and you're down Pennsylvania, you're looking at everything. So you're in a
That's the danger
dangerous
stuff.
profession.
Yeah.
And so it's one of those things.
In this next segment, Trump discusses the terrifying possibility of nuclear war, something he claims was closer than most people realize. He also brings up a proposal he made that could have changed everything but was ignored. It's one of the most intense parts of the conversation and shows how close the world might have come to disaster.
Because the nuclear is the biggest threat we have in the world today. It's not global warming where the oceans are rising 1/8 of an inch in the next 500 years.
Right.
The threat that we have, the biggest threat is nuclear war.
Yeah.
You seem
Because-
concerned about that.
I am, because it only takes one.
True.
I am.
Very true.
There are 5 countries now that have capability, and soon they'll have more, and we shouldn't let there be more. And I was at a point very good, despite the Russia hoax. It was a total hoax, and we were totally exonerated and everything else. I could have told them that the first day. But that causes, a lot of problems.
Yeah.
A lot of problems, and they're a big nuclear power. We were close to a deal for getting rid of nuclear weapons. It would be so good.
For all countries or just Russia?
We were talking about Russia, ourselves, and China.
Oh, wow.
And we would then bring everyone else into it. And
So you all
Strongly.
would get rid of your nuclear capabilities.
denuclearize, yes. We were going to get rid
Totally
of
denuclearized.
nuclear because it's too powerful.
Yeah.
It's too much.
Yeah.